Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service.
Here we are again at the end of a rainbow.
The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. What is up, family? Today, I am very happy to be joined by a deeply talented and honest artist from Baltimore who just released his latest album, Teddy Brown Brown, which is very, very dope. And also who released My Favorite Day Parade back in 2019. I'm pleased to be welcomed by the Baltimore version of Machine Gun Kelly, Teddy Faley. If you don't get the reference, then you got to listen to the new album. But man, before we really get into it, I just want to say a shout out to some of my patrons and some of the fans that listen to this show, because I actually initially wasn't on to your music up until earlier this year, where just some people were like, I think it was when you announced that this album was coming, people were like, some of my like listeners were like, oh, you got to check this out. I was like, okay, cool. Really liked it. And then I think one of my patrons, like Kana Khalil, I think he specifically like added you and he said, you guys should talk. And I was like, that's a great idea. So just a message to everybody. I'm listening, I take the feedback and I'm really happy we're doing this because I've been really enjoying getting into your music. So yeah, how are you doing?
I'm swell, except for the throbbing pain in my face. I've got a toothache, but other than that, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
As you are from Baltimore, I'm curious to know, like, what was your first experience with hip hop? Like, how'd you get into it growing up there?
Well, I mean, the day that I heard Machine Gun Kelly changed my life. I was just hanging around, some fucking douchebag was playing douchebag music. And I was like, man, whoever this guy is he's, that's my future right there. So
he is the future of music. He's bringing pop back, he's making it great again.
So I started to
Pop
get
and
tats.
punk.
I started with the tats, and then I got a shovel because I saw a music video where you had a shovel. I didn't know what was going on with it, but I figured it was necessary. And then I kind of got stuck after that. I'm just kidding. And what was the question? How did I get into music? Was that
like hip hop? Would you yeah? How that happened?
In terms of listening, I've been listening since I was a kid. I've been a fan since like in my brain it goes like Beach Boys, because my mom would listen to the Beach Boys, and then it's like Wu-Tang and Nas and every single person from Queensbridge and stuff like that. So I've been a fan forever. I started making music when I realized you could make music. Like it never dawned on me that I could do that sort of thing until I saw a friend of mine battling some dude outside of my high school, and I was like, oh shit, you don't need a degree or like permission to do this sort of stuff. You can just do it. And I was lucky enough to have him come by the crib and show me some of the like oldest home recording techniques on computers and stuff. And then and I just kept it up. I was lucky enough to like meet good people, like talented folks. I was terrible for like a solid 2.5 to 3 years. Like I was very bad. I didn't understand cadence whatsoever. But I just, kept at it, and then eventually, kind of nailed it. And I think I'm still learning to this day. Like if you listen to like my first real release, Apple Juice, and then you listen to Teddy Brown Brown, I think, I'm not impartial here, but I think I sound completely different. And I think that's just constantly like either learning something or abandoning something you didn't need in the first place. So yeah. So I've been doing it since I was like 17 years old, and now I'm 120.
Well, in that 80-year gap, I mean, I think I do see like, I feel like you sound really comfortable, and I think you push the envelope a bit in how you deliver your lyrics and kind of how you frame things, it's definitely very bold. And I think I do notice that when I listen to those two records side by side. And throughout your catalog, you, especially these last two albums, the sound is like really gritty. It's really hard nosed, progressive. So like, what were some of your like biggest musical influences, particularly from like the production sound, because you definitely have an affinity for that kind of sound.
Well, Teddy Brown's really, that was out of my hands completely. I mean, not completely. I had a big part to play in post production or whatever, but that's not my bag typically. It may be going forward because I enjoyed, working on it, and I enjoyed the space that those beats like gave me or whatever. Whereas before, when I was producing my own stuff, it was a lot of noise.
A lot more claustrophobic. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And like when I'm producing my own stuff, I overcompress the shit out of everything. I really like I like a compressed sound. I like a strong vocal, and I like I was listening to your podcast with Steel Tip Dove, and you guys were talking about compression and shit, and I was like, they're talking about stuff I like in a negative way. Or whatever. But everybody does. Like all of my producer buddies, all my engineer buddies, they're like, yeah, if you look at your catalog in a waveform, it's just a block, like or whatever.
Some of the best music is like that. It's all like a preference. All it works.
Yeah, and it allows for like. It also is like sort of for me at least a cover up for mistakes or whatever. Like you could always lean on that compression to cover up a shit kick or whatever. It'll just kind of move the kick out of the way a little bit and make it less noticeable. And it would give me when I do my own production, I do a lot of like drops and shit like that. I like to take stuff away and then give it back for an effect. And when you have something that's so like loud and compressed and then you go in there post, you go to the waveform after you actually mix the track, and then you manually take down whatever you need to take down.
Right.
It's rudimentary, but it does give it more of a, more of an effect. But this record was mastered by C Money Burns, I believe. I've never said that out loud. I hope that's how it's said.
Oh yeah, I follow him. I would think that's how I think that's how you'd say it. Don't know how else you'd say it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought your name was Rohan when I first started this.
Bro, everybody says my name is like, all the white people I know say Rohan as like the initial, and then they get closer and closer as I correct them.
So I'm a little better than most white
definitely
people.
Are.
I'm like one step better. Okay.
Yeah. But going to that like that brick of sound type vibe, I'm even like thinking of a very, 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 very probably one of the most expensive rap albums ever made, in Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye. If you've ever looked at that fucking waveform, it's just complete brick. It's super grainy and over compressed. But I find like a lot of times when artists take that kind of route, I think for that album, like it's definitely one of my favorite albums. It dirtied up what was otherwise such a luxurious sounding album, that it kind of took away from it being too cute, too perfect, even though it does, like, it's so maximalist, like it still kind of felt a little dirty, which I think was a neat kind of production choice, because otherwise it could have sounded like just too manicured and clean.
Right. I've never heard that record, but I know what you mean generally.
You've never heard it at all? You've definitely heard some songs like that.
I've heard some. Name some songs on it.
Like Power. That's in like a bunch of movies.
Yeah, I've heard Power.
Monster, the one that Nicki Minaj like kind of like.
The one that she murdered. Where I was like, wow, Nicki Minaj had bars.
Yeah, and that song's fucking really one of the more dirty songs in terms of the mixing and stuff. But yeah, I just like the effect that it has, and I feel like over the past few years I've gotten a lot more accustomed to that kind of like
the overcompressed sort of shit.
Overcompressed, and then just other kind of things, not necessarily the exact same techniques, but just things that make the sound feel a bit dirtier, gritty, grimy. I like that. I feel like a few years ago I'd be a little more impartial to it.
Yeah. There's one joint on Teddy Brown, the Indistinct Chatter, that has a lot of noise in it, and I think it works for that. Like both my and Mike Brown's vocals are pretty distorted, as is the sample, and that was all on Alexander Brown. Like that beat is a Tom DeLay beat, but then Alexander Brown like went to town on that sample and made it more substantial by adding that distortion, and I think that sound works really well. I also think that some of the best records I've ever heard are, this is kind of a left turn here, but are mixed terribly. Like if you listen to like the first 3 or 4 years of Wu-Tang with a critical ear now, you'd be like, what the hell, what's going on with it? Sounds like shit. Like Tikal sounds like shit. You know, a lot of like Mobb Deep's early records sound like shit. And you know, 17 or 18-year-old me walking around with the Discman wasn't like, why are the snares so low on this? Or you know, how come the bass ain't hitting like it should be hitting? Like it was just what it was. It was magic to me, you know.
I feel like with a lot of that, I think it's a question of like that album would have sounded so much worse to me. So not just a little worse, like so much worse. It was mixed more quote unquote like high audio fidelity techniques and all that, because it just sounds so gutter, and that's so perfect for what they were going for. Just feels so.
Same with something like Fun Crusher Plus. Like Fun Crusher Plus isn't mixed incredibly, but it's mixed how it should be mixed. Like it sounds, you know, dusty, like he says.
Yeah, dusty. Yeah, that's the word. And you know, so like another really, really good part of your music that I love is like your sense of humor and the way you use like nihilism. It's a pretty fucking twisted sense of humor, I'd say. Like Bad News on the new album, that's just legitimately like one of the most hilarious songs I've heard in so long. Is just devilish. Like it's just
thank you,
brutal. It's so funny though.
Thank you. There's two takes on that song. I get two different takes, and then the first is the like, what's wrong with you? Like this is the meanest shit that I've heard.
Fair.
Like this
Fair take.
shouldn't. Yeah. And it caused some issues in getting the record out there initially.
Why? Because did people think it was like too mean, or made you look bad?
Too much stuff, but we kind of had something sort of lined up, and then I think that song cost us the what was lined up initially.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I think my theory is that it's like a very, like if I had like a Venn diagram, all of the people who like react like shocking, like that, what are you fucking talking, why are you just being a shit the whole, this is the worst thing you could possibly say for 3 minutes or whatever, that they're all stepdads and they're all musicians. That's my like pet theory. I haven't actually checked that out yet, but I think because it does touch on something that happens. Like I've seen couples break up. I've seen plenty of dudes introduce their girls. I found this local artist, let's go check him out. And I've seen that relationship fall apart, and I've seen that dude swoop. You know what I mean? But no, none of that song is supposed to be serious at all. That's not me whatsoever. That was just me. Like I wrote the first 4 bars of that without even thinking about where it's gone. Some I urinated in your sink. I saw your neighbors in the street. I told them that you pee in sinks. And then I had that just blankly. And then I was like, well, how can I build on that? And I was like, well, it turned into me just being like, how could I be the meanest person ever?
I think you're like exploring just being a douche, like just a douchebag. But it's like, I don't think I ever even assumed that's actually how you are. I just felt like you were just going on a tangent, like painting this douche character. Really, really.
Thank you. That's
details.
That's what I was hoping.
And the details are just remarkably brutal. It's so funny.
Thanks.
It's just like the way the whole fucking your bitch thing, like just the way even like that's what I was saying earlier about the confidence and how bold you are and like how you are communicating some of this stuff. It's really pushing the envelope, but I think it like lands, you know, because you're getting really coy and I don't know, sly, if that's a word to use for this, just in the way you're saying it. It's just funny.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's kind of what I was going for with it.
I think, and then also in other songs on this album, and again, just like generally in your catalog, you take a kind of nihilistic and you kind of layer humor into topics that are more personal, are more serious, quote unquote. And I'm just curious, like, why you choose to do that versus approaching topics in a more like normal way. Do you feel that's just more of a reflection of how you look at things, or do you feel that speaking in this like nihilistic, dark humor kind of way pulls out something special in the music?
It's I don't make a lot of choices when it comes to stuff. I just like I go with what I am feeling at the time. So like at no point that I sit down and I'm like, what I'm gonna do for Teddy Brown Brown is I'm gonna try to speak more plainly and like get into how I view the world in a more literal sense. Like it just happened because that's how I feel now. That shit sucks, you know. Certain things over the past like 10 years or so kind of pushed me in a direction where I kind of became convinced that shit does like it at the end of the day, at the very end of the day, like everything is terrible. And I don't think that's healthy. And I'm not saying that that's the way that's a good philosophy or whatever. But I've also always been the person who like appreciates the darkness in or who appreciates the humor in darkness. I think some of the funniest shit I've ever heard is the most terrible things I've ever heard. I think comedy is at its root subverted expectations. And so if you're talking about something terrible and then you slip a joke in, it's that much more funny. The funniest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, if you don't mind me telling a story that has nothing to do with me, well, it has something to do with me. So my mom's dead. And she's been dead for a while. My brother was at an office party and he went into the kitchen, put a cup in the sink. There was a dude in there washing dishes and shit. And the dude was like, "You're just going to leave that cup in the sink?" And my brother was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to leave the cup in the sink." And the guy said, "Is that how your mother raised you?" And my brother said something that we've both said a dozen times throughout our lives, which is, "You're going to feel dumb in a second because my mom's dead." And without skipping a beat, the dude said, "Did she die from washing dishes?"
Oh my God. Holy shit.
Which is like the funniest fucking thing I've ever, and
God.
it's such a gamble. Like
That is
it's
such a
like
gamble. Do they know each other? Like, kind
no,
of?
they didn't know. They didn't know it, which makes it. That's why it's so
That
funny.
is
Like
such a ball. I almost respect it. Like,
oh, I respect the shit out of it. It is like if somebody stops me on the street and they're like, "What's the funniest thing that's ever happened?" That's like off the top of my head, like what I say.
wow.
And 5 years earlier, my brother would have fucking, you know, he would have Will Smith them right across the face. But
That's true. You don't even know, like, did that happen? That guy doesn't know if it happened yesterday. He has no
right,
clue. He's just, I'm just gonna say it. Fuck this guy,
yeah,
man.
yeah, and that is
Holy
my kind of
shit.
humor. Like I like to, and it's annoying sometimes because I can't stop it. It's a common thing I hear from like friends is like, you can't take anything seriously, can you? Because I'll always try to break tension with a joke if one comes to mind, and that's a personality flaw to some extent, but I do think I was able to kind of work it into this record to a to a good outcome.
Yeah, I think you did. Do you feel like you have that kind of mentality of like whatever, quote unquote, everything is terrible, genuinely, because it kind of like once you have the mentality, things don't disappoint you anymore, and you're kind of like free from that expectation of something being better, and so you can get pleasantly surprised at times or something along those
No,
lines.
I don't think it was like I think it was just getting beat down by too many people dying, honestly, to be frank, and
Mm.
learning about the world and shit like that. Like, um, I think that it's me more than anything. It's my perspective on it. Like, there's plenty of good out there, and when I see it, when I just find it hard to recognize sometimes. When I do recognize it, I try to really focus on it as much as possible because I think it's good for your mental health.
Mm.
And it's probably bad for your mental health to just think everything sucks and the heat death of the universe is inevitable and we're all going to die and nothing means anything. But it can make for some good bars
Yeah.
sometimes. You know what I mean?
bar this is reminding me of, like this conversation is reminding me of, is the, I don't know if you heard the new Woods album that dropped yesterday.
No, I have not, but I'm
No,
going to
it's
very soon.
fantastic. There's one
Yeah, I see
line,
people talking about it left and right
yeah,
on Twitter.
it's getting like high praise. But one of the lines that really stuck with me that's kind of related to this, he says, it's a freedom in knowing it's not going to get better, or there's a freedom in knowing it's not going to get better. And that one, like, I was like, damn, that's
Yeah,
just so much there. I'm just like, fuck. That's such an interesting way to put it, because that's why I was going with when I was asking that, because it kind of makes sense. It's like, just if you kind of lose the burden of trying to hope, which is fucked up. That's such a shitty kind of, in a way that's so sad. Like, but it kind of
yeah,
is, because if you're acknowledging what the world is, which is, there's a lot of just brutality out there, it kind of is freeing to know, well, it's probably not going to get better.
yeah, yeah. I wish I felt that freedom. I don't feel that free. I feel
Mm,
like when I get there, I'm just like, Jesus, that sucks or
yeah.
whatever. But maybe there is some sort of like unconscious freedom there. It allows me to, you know, I don't know. I think that mentality you could probably take too far, and I think I probably have just naturally letting it go too far for me.
Mm,
Um, so I'm also a huge proponent of like mental health, like therapy. I think that that's all like good
yeah.
stuff, and that everyone should probably be in talk therapy. Um, I've been in therapy since I was 16 years old.
Mm.
And look at the, you know, how happy I am now. So it's great. Everyone should go. Everyone should go to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Um, yeah, so okay, so if we like get into a bit more of like your lyricism, it's very confessional, it's very honest, and it's definitely one of like the key kind of things that I feel a lot of people are drawn to in your music. Was lyricism like this, that's so honest and personal, always something you just wanted to create, or were there some artists maybe that guided you to, and kind of like influenced you to make this kind of style of rap?
I think Teddy Brown Brown in particular is probably the furthest from me being inspired from somebody else. A lot of my old stuff was inspired, and I'm not trying to talk shit about my old stuff, but there is a difference between Teddy Brown Brown and everything I've done before. Was directly inspired by a lot of, you know, early 2000s underground hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And with Teddy Brown Brown, the beats were so far from that sort of thing or anything, frankly, that like I would tend to gravitate towards, that I just wrote stuff. Like I would just sit and write, and without really putting too much thought into it. I do think that there's somebody I respect immensely is Aesop Rock. There's a handful of people that I used to listen to back in the day that are still making music who are better than they were before. And he's one of them. And I think that like he's somebody else who, if you listen to his early stuff, you could listen to it and be like, yeah, okay. Like, I don't know what he's saying, but it's
Mm-hmm.
rocking or whatever. Whereas you hear something like, I don't know if you listen to ASAP Rock or not.
I
Like,
do. Yeah. I like
okay.
him.
But like now you get like he's kind of done what he did with Lucy, and then like back on his first Def Jux joint, and then kind of combine that with his eccentric shit, and also never let his flow fucking falter. And
Yeah.
now he has his joints like Dog at the Door, which is I think is like the best song about anxiety that I've ever heard.
Mm.
So if anybody, like seeing somebody who I was like a hero to me, is a hero to me, like be able to not suck after so long and then also improve, was a probably had some part to play in it, and may have subconsciously given me some sort of confidence to be less obtuse in how I write.
Yeah, that's something that I find really interesting, because that's like the main difference, right? And one thing I'm curious about when you talk about speaking a bit more directly, I guess you could say, there was something there was an interview you did with Poppycock magazine. I think this was like a while ago, like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And you said something that I want to quote because I found it was super cool way of putting it. You said that there's safety in the abstract. There's a safety net in metaphors. So
That is super cool. I didn't
yeah,
remember saying that, but that
no,
yeah.
it's a good part. It's exactly kind of what you're saying. So could you like expand a bit more on, I guess you're saying by now that it's not really a choice that you kind of made music in this less obtuse way. Was it just then the music was the reason your lyrical focus was a little different on this album, or was it life experience, or was it you trying to just do something different?
I think it was life experience and the not giving a shit about that safety net anymore. You don't need a safety net when you've hit the floor already. You know what I mean? I mean, in most universes, this record doesn't exist. In most universes, I like just drowned in depression and didn't make music again. And the fact that this music got made is largely due to Alexander Brown and Tom Delay Beats saying, we are doing a project together. Like, you need to give us bars and shit or whatever. We need to get this together. And then me kind of just like reporting from the other side of the rubble to some extent. Like, I don't give a shit anymore about hiding behind metaphor. I don't care. And it turns out that speaking more plainly allows me to put more of my personality into it. Like, allowed me to kind of like flex my, like, I have a good sense of humor. People say I'm hilarious and handsome and good looking and that I have a lot of money. But like dropping the need to wrap it in metaphor gave me a lot more freedom to just talk. It also made writing a lot easier. And I changed my writing process as well. Like I stopped sitting down and saying, I need to write 16 bars. I started like just jotting stuff down. And then after I would have a song, I would go back through and then edit it and like take stuff out, say this line could be better, you know. And I've never done that before. I've always just written and then ran with whatever I had. So I think that has a part to play as well. But yeah, when we were talking about how to promote this record, like one of the ideas that I had, which didn't pan out, that I pitched the label, was we could like pitch this album as like Notes from Under the Rubble. Like, the building's already collapsed. It's game over. Like, and I'm just trying to warn you, like, here's what's coming for you or whatever. Shit just gets worse. And, you know, the best you could do is have a sense of humor about it, maybe.
Well, that's really well said. Is it more because you're a bit more like direct? Is it more, or is it ever kind of therapeutic when you create music like this? Does it help you kind of process things in a way?
No. And I wish it did. I've never really gotten the music as therapy sort of deal.
Interesting.
Yeah, people say that, but I don't know if people mean it. Like, I don't. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. But like, I've never written something down and been like, glad I got that off my chest or whatever. It's therapy in the sense that, like, if you put something out that does mean something to you to some extent, or if you just put something out and it affects somebody and then they tell you that it affected them, that's got to be good on the psyche, I think. The reception that Teddy Brown got really surprised me, and I wasn't expecting as many people to take to it as they did, and that's been great for my general well-being, and it certainly inspired me to just keep writing. You know,
that's great.
Yeah, get started on the next shit.
One thing that writing in this way, as someone who again was only introduced to your music sort of recently, I was introduced to your music prior to the album actually dropping. So I listened to My Favorite Day Parade. That was the one that a listener recommended to me. And like I said,
so you're the seventh person that heard that record.
Yeah. Or sixth,
okay.
Seventh, maybe eighth.
Sixth. I listened to it earlier today, so I count myself.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's accurate technically.
I played it for my dog, so it's 9 now.
But what was I saying? Yeah, when I listened to that, I liked it. But when I listened to Teddy Brown Brown and then went back to it, I think because you let kind of more of your personality show and kind of more as you show, I found that one just instantly got so much better. Like I was like, wow, I know I really like this now. I just liked it. Now I like really like it. I think it does kind of allow you to.
You really like My Favorite Day Parade better after you heard Teddy Brown Brown,
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
like
like it
Teddy
sounded
Brown
better with kind of hearing
context of,
Teddy, yeah, context, that kind of thing. I felt like I knew
okay.
you more, so then it just made that one better. I think that's pretty common with a lot of people's catalogs, but I feel like it was pretty evident with those two albums side by side. Because it kind of allowed me to like, okay, I know more of this person. So then when you're a little more metaphorical and all that, it hit a bit more, I guess.
That's interesting. That's
Mhm.
cool.
Um, and you put a lot of yourself into these rhymes, obviously, explore some like difficult personal thoughts. Like, was there a record that was very, very difficult, like one of the most you raw and personally you've ever done? And has there ever been one you've actually made and you're like, I can't release this publicly? Like, it just can't happen. This is too much.
Um, no. So I swore off years ago trying to make songs about dead friends or whatever. Because it never felt like I was doing it justice. It always felt like corny to me or whatever. And that I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing or whatever. And so the like touching a raw nerve is something I don't generally do, because I do keep a distance with like trying to, not trying, but just putting jokes in there. I think just like in life, like while I'm writing, I naturally keep a sort of distance from it. And then, I can say stuff like, I could put that on the listener. I can just introduce the fact that like my mom's dead, like out of nowhere. And then like, that's on, now it's on you. Like I knew it, so it doesn't affect me, but now it's on you or whatever. So no, there's nothing there's stuff that I didn't do well before, I don't think. Like if you go back to my first record, there's a song called Smile about my mom. And I remember thinking that didn't really hit like I wanted it to. I think, yeah, I don't know. Nothing too raw, because I kind of keep a distance to some extent. There's a, Helter Skelter, I would imagine, correct? Rock and Sean Price. So when Sean Price passed, I saw a video that Rock put out. I don't know the name of the song, but it was like obviously a tribute to Sean Price. It was like ostensibly I Miss My Dead Friend song. And like 8 bars in, I've only heard the song once, so excuse me if I get some of this wrong, but like 8 bars in, he stops and he's like, you know what, fuck this isn't what we did. He wouldn't like this at all. And then the rest of the song is just him going back to his own shit. And I was like, that's a tribute.
That's more authentic. Yeah.
And like there's a joint on Teddy Brown Brown that is like a stealth I Miss My Homie song, but it's done in like a super stealth way. That's like that it's the most I feel like I'm not putting enough respect on these words, but it's the most like I Miss My Friend song. Like it's completely me and me not feeling like I didn't hit the mark and I'm not doing them justice that I've done so far. And it's because I did it in my own lane, as opposed to saying, I used
like
to have
really directly, I'm really sad, I miss my friends. Yeah. Is it Dear Friends? Exactly. That's the song you're talking about?
I'm going to keep it a complete secret because
okay. Well, I want to ask you a question about Dear Friends, just generally, not directly about that, but I think that was the song that really showed me how great of a storyteller you are, and I think you're just really good at that generally. And I think I may have tweeted about this actually recently. It's like closer to the beginning of the record where you introduce your homie, and you're talking to your homie Gus, and you just say he's my dog. Like,
I appreciated the shit out of that tweet. I really did.
because that like actually I didn't catch it initially, and then I heard it like a week ago or something, and I was just like, that like made me really crack up because I thought you were talking about a person. You have to be talking about a person, and then you're talking about your dog, and then it like hits a different layer where it felt really lonely. Like it added to the loneliness because like obviously like I love my cat, you know, my cat's my best friend, but there's a lot of times where I feel like, damn, he's like, yeah, I do feel that similar like kind of loneliness from like, damn, like all I got is my cat. Like I don't have a girl, I don't have, and it's just like, it's just that feeling, and I just like it. You didn't. It was still funny, but it just added to the emptiness I felt, the loneliness of just like melancholy,
Yeah.
whatever. And I
it
find
kind
those
of
kind of
pervasive,
details
like,
are striking, you know.
thank you. I yeah, when I saw you write about that, I was like, it was one of those moments where I was like, that is dope. I hadn't thought about that. Like the stealth like introduction of like, here's a named thing, you're gonna assume it's a person, and then I'm like, well, what they say? It's nothing, he's a dog. And then you move on from that or whatever. Yeah, that I wrote that like literally as he was trying to chase deer. Like we were taking a walk and I was writing, and then he was trying to chase deer that ran away from him or whatever. But yeah, it's not dear friends. We can talk about dear friends all day long, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Like one thing that's obviously like a big black cloud or elephant in the room for all of us, but I think especially artists, because artists felt the brunt of this in a way that was pretty unique, is obviously like the pandemic and shit like that. And I'm curious, like, how did the pandemic experience maybe shape this record, if at all? Did it amplify certain aspects of feeling that kind of nihilistic, like everything's kind of terrible?
Yes.
Or yeah, it did.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, it was always there, but like when I was in Baltimore, it was for years. It was me, DJ Addict, and Cubby Bear, and we all lived within blocks of each other. And I don't know if you ever heard of Cubby Bear, but he's
No, I have not.
you got to check his shit. He's one of the most amazing artists you'll ever hear. He's largely responsible for me existing as a musician. I mean, there's a few of those people, but he's one of those very few. And he's passed since. And then it was just me and Addict, me and DJ Addict, you know, in the same neighborhood or whatever. But we were still in the city doing shit, whatever. And then COVID hits, and I'm up here, and then you realize how like fragile things are, you know, in terms of like structure of society and shit. And then you have people who I think are maniacs running their mouth on TV all the fucking time. Like, we got Nazis again, and I'm like, just none of this is going to work out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is, and so I think that a lot of that kind of pervades like itself into the music. And I think that's grammatically terrible, that sentence that I just said, but hopefully nobody will know.
No, we get the point. I think it was communicated. But like because you said like the acclaim has been very surprisingly positive and all that good stuff. So I'm curious, like you generally seem to be very self-deprecating, like a lot of times shrouded in humor, but that is kind of, even in some of the interviews I saw you do previously, it's a common theme. But was there a moment in your career earlier where you're like, oh, I really actually can do this? Like I have a talent, a knack for this rap thing.
No. And I apologize for shaking my head on a podcast, which I just did for the listeners. I just emphatically shook my head. No.
There's a video version. It's all good.
So no, and I think that's like, there's some cognitive dissonance there. Like I've never felt that there are people out there who I've known for years that are making music in Baltimore or wherever, that are just, they've been doing it for so long, and they're so mad that the world hasn't caught on to the talent that they have, that they live and breathe hip hop, and they've done so much for the culture, and like, you know, like they've been doing this forever, and like still like nobody comes to my shows and nobody buys my shit or whatever, which, you know, sometimes is a valid take, and I understand that's got to be frustrating, but like, check your bars, homie. Like maybe you're not that dope. You know what I mean? Like there's a lack of self-awareness in a lot of those folks. And I think my almost ever present imposter syndrome is one of the best things that I have. Like I've been surprised to be allowed in the door from day one, and I've been surprised I'm still allowed to be here. I'm constantly surprised when people like my shit. Sometimes I nail a verse. Like sometimes I write a verse and record it, and I'm like, that's what I was trying to do. Like I nailed what I was trying to do. But I'm never like, this is gonna change the world, or like this is what the world needs right now, or this is gonna save hip hop or whatever. So like none of that stuff has been around, and I'm super grateful for it, because I think it's one of my, I think the second I lose that is the second you start putting out, mediocre shit.
Yeah, I think there's certain artists. There's very, very few, honestly, that can be so, I guess you could say, delusional, for a lack of a better word, and so self-aggrandizing and so egotistical, and it somehow works. And a lot of times it's really just based on the kind of music they normally make. Like if you're the type of music you make, that's where it would really be a problem. Like if you're trying to be so
Right.
personal, so like honest, and therefore requiring me to care, I need to kind of care about what you're saying. It's just like, this guy is a ridiculous. Like that's such a foolish way of looking at whatever topic, whatever subject. But that's definitely required. But I think you nail it for sure, because it's like, damn, like you're talking about all these heavier topics, but you just seem like you're not going overboard with any of it. And I just feel like I can connect, like it's a regular guy talking about things that they care about,
Yeah, I'm surprised anyone listens to my shit. You know what I mean? And I've been that way forever. A lot of some of that mentality comes from Cubby Bear, who was like the first person to kind of point out how it's easy when you get involved in the scene. Like when I first became part of like the Baltimore rap scene, it is easy to kind of feel like, oh, I'm here, like I've done it, like I've made it. I must be a talent. I must have something, people. But at the end of the day, like everyone's going home and they're scared they're not going to be liked. You know what I mean? Like artists in particular are like scared they're not going to be liked. And sometimes that comes out in the most pathetic Facebook posts I've ever seen, where people are like, I've been doing this forever and blah, 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 blah. But, sometimes it'll eat you alive. But I think me not expecting much kind of helped me out. And I'm also a generally self-deprecating person. I think people are corny. I think like everyone has imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome, but I have the benefit of like being so in my brain all the time that like I know everyone has imposter syndrome. And so like, so shut up. You know what I mean? If you're bragging in my face, generally I know that you're gonna, you're crying yourself to sleep at night.
Yeah, that's how it normally is. I think people when they really care about something, that's where it gets tough to be so down to earth and like reasonable and grounded, because I find I'm similar to you when it comes to like my non-music related work, where it's just like I kind of know a lot of this is just like corny. It's just like I like what I do. It's good, pays the bills, but it's like, I'm not acting like I'm saving the world here.
Right.
Managing
and we were all like, we were all not musicians at some point. We didn't. No wizard came down and said, "You have bars." You know what I mean? Like, have bars and go forth or whatever. Like that didn't happen to anybody. By being like, could I do this? Like maybe I can do this. And some people get to the point where they're like, yeah, I can do this. And some people get to the point where like, I'm saving the world. Like I'm telling the world about the conspiracy theories that the world needs to know about, and like I'll save the world or whatever. Or like, or you could wind up like Jay-Z, who I think is somebody who's like incredibly, like I think he embodies.
That's what I was.
he's like, so he is, but he's almost the exception to the rule. Like
That's
he
what I
is
meant
like,
when I was saying there's very few artists that actually, where it's like you actually, it's authentic for you to feel this confident, this
right.
self-aggrandizing. Kendrick's another one when you talk about, it's
Oh my God,
actually
yes. Without a
Kendrick, when
doubt,
you're
Kendrick.
saying about some no wizard tells you you got bars, like comes down. I don't know if he literally posted this himself or he spoke about this, but yeah, I think he spoke about how he had like a vision that like Tupac told him like he was the save, like he was the neck, like he was next up or something in rap. I actually think there's truth to that. I think there is something he said along those lines, but it's just in his vibe. Everything about him, he takes things so seriously. He definitely has a perspective on like, you know, political, socio-political stuff where it's like it fits, you know, and he's really
Oh
great.
yeah.
I think he's a great rapper. So it's like he's not whack. So that's, I think, the biggest part. He's not whack. So you're like, you know,
That is the first thing you
the
need. If
first
you're gonna
criteria,
be
he's actually not whack
right.
because
And
yeah,
not only not
yeah,
whack, but like transcendent. Like
yeah,
he is an incredible gift to the world. Like his music is, it's weird. It's not weird. It's like he says a lot of stuff in a way that like people who normally wouldn't get the message do get the message.
yeah.
He also like, I don't know. There's people who misinterpret shit all the time, but like, yeah, he exudes confidence. I also think Childish Gambino is another person who's just like on some next level. Anything you do is like you're kind of nailing it. I mean, he's not. I don't think Childish Gambino's on the same level as somebody like Kendrick, but I have been extremely impressed in some of the like the more like left field shit that he's come out with that have just simply worked because he's like, this is going to work because I'm me and I'm good at it or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because he got I don't know if you saw this. There was a recent interview magazine where he interviewed himself. It
No,
got it
that's
came out
dope.
this week and people are just like going crazy over it. And I get some of the people, like a lot of journalist people are like, this is why journalism is like needed. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but it's like Charles Gambino, in my opinion, he's like, he's not someone who's, there's not something he needs to be held accountable for. He's not like a, I don't think he's done anything publicly that's really bad. So it's like, I don't know
Right.
why everything needs to be serious because it's fucking like ridiculous. Like he's asking himself like ridiculous, stupid questions and he answers it. Like it's kind of funny. I thought it was kind of funny. And
I
it's
would
also
imagine
like,
that's the tone, right? Like
yeah, and it's kind of
so you're
funny.
saying
It's,
journalists are pissed off? Like this is why
well, no,
this
but
interview doesn't
people,
work because
but
there's no one.
there is some, there are certain criticisms of him that I think are valid. But at the end of the day, I think he is like that. I think people don't realize how confident he is. Like
Right.
he's all the corny, like, yeah, he doesn't care that he's corny. He knows he's like that like weirdo guy when he was growing up. But man, he has a vision. And I think his like Atlanta, I think his show is probably the most realized form of art he's created, other than his music, which I do really like. I really like The Awaken My Love. I really like Because of the Internet. Um, yeah, that kind of person, it fits the bill if he's that like that believes that strongly that what he's doing is such a service and like such a force in the world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. He may be somebody where a lack of self awareness is good. Like if he spent too much time thinking about, I'm an actor, but I'm a comedian, but am I doing music? Is that okay? Which is how I would
Mm-hmm.
process all that. You know, he's just like, I am all this and I'm good enough at all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that, you know, it just works for him, I think,
Yeah.
all around.
And so going to something that we kind of touched on before is like, unlike my favorite day parade, you relinquish the beat making duties to Alexander Brown, Tom DeLay beats. Um, and so I'm curious, like, why did you want to let others produce this record for you? Because the other was fully self-produced by you. And like, how did you feel relinquishing the beat making duties and just focusing on the rap solely like helped or changed the end product?
Well, I feel like when you got like a name as big as mine, like it's a responsibility to like bless your homies that might be needing a little help, you know what I mean, and lift them up. So I called them up. They took my call, obviously. I was like, I'm gonna do y'all a favor. It's like, no, that's not. It happened organically. I've been working with Tom DeLay Beats since 2006,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. He started a record label in Baltimore that that I was initially a part of that got my foot in the door. So I've been working with him, for a long time. And then Alexander Brown, I met a couple years later in the scene in Baltimore as he was getting started making beats. But I think it just got started organically once I moved out here. Tom DeLay Beats sent me the beat for Panic with a Panic Buddy, and I wrote to it. And then somehow Alexander Brown got in the mix. Like maybe he mixed it, actually. That's like quite literally, maybe he just mixed it. And I think around that same time, he sent me the beat for Dear Friends. And I wrote Dear Friends and recorded that. And those happened around the same time. And so we thought, let's make a record. It was probably them more than me, because they're less ambitious than they are. And they were like, we should probably just make a whole record or whatever. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And then, so that's how that started, at least.
Yeah, and the name works. Teddy Brown.
The name was all me. I'm taking credit for the name.
Oh yeah.
At some point during the record, I was like, guys, I want to call this Teddy Brown. And as I recall, they were both like, I don't know if that's good or not. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter, because I know, and it's great. I love the name Teddy Brown. I don't know why I love the name Teddy Brown.
No, it's just I like it. It's charming. I like the album artwork too. It all fits really nice. It's a good package.
Thank you.
You know.
I took that photo, and I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with the camera, but I was like, 3 chairs, Teddy Brown.
No, that's really nice. I always say this, but especially as a first impression, that's super important. I was instantly drawn. I'm like, oh, this looks legit. Worth me.
Cool.
Listening.
Awesome.
I judge things by their cover a lot, especially when there's too much music out. It's hard to make decisions on what to press play on. If you have a really awful album cover, it's like I gotta have a hard recommendations, like a reason to think you're good before.
Yeah.
And so further to this topic of the lyricism, like the last thing I really want to get into about this record is one of the clear, boldest songs on the record is a song about cigarettes, but it's about my dead mom too. That is actually the title for those unaware. Could you illustrate like how you even conceptualized a song this funny, but also so bare and raw at the same time?
That's another one where I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to try to thread a needle between like my addiction to cigarettes and the fact that they killed my mom and their complicated kind of twisty turny thing. That was me writing, like, I think that was around the time where I was leaning into being as me as like letting all the metaphor shit go. And like, and I was just like, I love cigarettes. I love cigarette breaks. Like, you can't be more on the nose than that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hidden meaning whatsoever. But I don't recall exactly, but I would, just knowing me, I guarantee I wrote everything up until about cigarettes. I got nothing but good shit to say. And then I was like, oh, I know what this song's going to be. And it's like, ain't they kill your mom, my dude? And I'm like, well, that's what the rest of the song is going to be, is me playing around in that field of like the absolute ridiculousness of the fact that, like, watch the whole thing go down, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And like add that to the fact that she kind of chose it. She had lung cancer twice. She beat it, and then kept smoking on the low. Then got it again, and then passed. So like, there was like a long time where like, I was like, well, she chose that or whatever, over us,
right.
over her family and shit. I think it is a little more complicated than that. And
surely,
yeah, that song is probably, I'm most proud of that song. I think that that's a song where like after those first 6 or 8 bars, like I knew what I was trying to do. And I was like, I want to try to write a song about my dead mom and how I smoke cigarettes, but I'm going to try to make it funny as well. But I also want it to like punch people in the face sometimes. Like I want people to be rocking out and just be like, fuck this guy. Like, why would he say that? Like,
that's exactly the tone that you strike. Cause I'm like listening to it and I'm just starting to get really uncomfortable towards the end of it. I'm like, wait, is he really? I was like, oh, see that little piece in my stomach. I'm just starting to turn a bit, but I'm like, damn, that sucks. But also it's kind of funny the way you're saying it. Like, it is kind of ridiculous. Like you said, ridiculous is the right word. Like, but life's ridiculous, A lot of
Right,
ridiculous shit
exactly.
happens all the time.
Yeah. Like me, like nothing really has much meaning except for what you can give to it or whatever. So like it is all ridiculous. But thank you for saying that. That is one song where I was like trying to go for that. Like
Yeah,
we
I
go from
think what
punchline to like don't forget my mom said or whatever.
yeah.
So,
And like I think when you're talking about a concept like that's touching on addiction, I think that's a really good tone to hit because kind of in a way addiction I'm not trying to diminish it. I hope you understand that. I'm just saying it is a ridiculous it's one of the more ridiculous things that happens in the world, but it's obviously it's addiction. There's real like chemical shit happening in your body that makes it difficult, all that stuff, but it's like people every day do things that are actively bad for them, but we do it for so many rational reasons that and we just do it. Like it's not just cigarettes. Like I eat junk food a lot, or I do this, or I fucking watch porn. Like what a lot of people have weird addictions, but it's just funny in a way, even though it's fucked up, that this
no,
happens all
it's
the time.
absurd.
It's
Yeah, it's
absurd.
absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It doesn't it doesn't make sense. And that's why I think there's like a good I think it's changed over the past, whatever kind of years. But you hear a lot from people who don't understand addiction or depression for that matter. Like just
Similar. Yeah.
stop. Yeah, just stop. Like why don't you just stop? And what they don't get is like everything in me wants to stop, like except for me not stopping or whatever. Like if there was like a stop it button, like I would hit the shit out that button. But you just sometimes you just don't until you can or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, in my experience, people can't. Uh, and it sticks with them forever, which is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Like if aliens were looking at us, they'd be like, "Why is he doing that again?
Exactly.
Like he did that yesterday, and then he fell asleep in a bush. And he didn't seem happy about it in the morning. So why is he doing that again today?" And like we would need to explain to aliens, like, "Oh no, we're dumb. Like we're not dumb, but like we have this, something in our genetics and our brain, like gets us stuck in these loops where it feels impossible not to do stuff." And that's leaving out the physical aspect of it. That's just the
Yeah.
mental, it's
Yeah.
just the mental addiction part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I love the way you put that. So yeah, I just have to say, really appreciate you making that album. I think it's definitely been one of the most rewarding listens, like further, like in terms of replay value and all that this year. It's definitely been, and I've heard a lot of good things from people that I respect too. People really loving this record.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I'm very proud of this record, and I didn't like I said before, I didn't see the. I mean, I'm floored by the some of the stuff I've heard about it,
Mm-hmm.
and being invited onto your podcast and stuff like that. It's a goddamn joy.
Yeah.
Even though I sit here the whole time and I'm like, life sucks, blah blah blah, blah. And like I'm self-conscious about that. I hope that I don't come across the whole time as like, boy, this guy's a fucking
No,
he's a
no,
bummer,
no. I think you're
bummer and a
coming
half.
off just fine. Yeah. So no, that's no, that's dope, and I definitely appreciate you coming on too. Before we wrap here, what are some like upcoming projects you have? I think you mentioned something you're working on.
Yeah, my next album's called the Banshee Connection. Um, that's not true. That's a lie. I just promised my brother I would say that if I was asked this question because we somehow the phrase Banshee Connection came up yesterday, and then I was like, I'm going to say that on the podcast. So yeah, I'm working. I mean, Karma Kids has been a huge fucking. They've been a huge, and I should have mentioned them earlier. We Are the Karma Kids is the label that released Teddy Brown Brown. Chances are very strong you would have never heard it had they not put the weight behind it that they had. They've been incredible in terms of driving this record since it's come out. So we've been talking about what we're doing next, and we got I got some beats from some folks, maybe some people you've interviewed in the past. I don't really know what's gonna happen, but
Okay.
yeah, but I'm writing still. I'm enjoying writing now for the first time in a long time. For lack of a better phrase, like I'm kind of feeling myself a little bit. So expect me to be really out of pocket next time. It's gonna be all confidence and no self-deprecation.
Yeah.
I'll be like, actually, never mind on Teddy Brown Brown. I am the shit, and check me out. And why doesn't more people buy my shit? And
You're gonna like all Jay-Z. You're gonna call yourself like Tova.
Tova. It'll be like, ain't them sandals? But yeah, and we got more Teddy Brown Brown stuff coming out too. We got some videos in the bag.
Nice.
That we're gonna be dropping soon. And we also have, I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking about this, but what are they gonna do? We got remixes that we've asked some really talented producers to do. Nice. For songs on Teddy Brown Brown. And what I would like is for every song to be remixed by a producer, and then us release it, as a remix record with 10 different producers. And I've gotten some incredible stuff back so far. Some of the stuff beats the original joints, if you ask me. I can't say stuff like that when I didn't produce a song, but I did, so whatever. The Browns won't know which one I'm talking about, so it's fine. I also got some singles. I got some singles that I'll be dropping soon. One that
is it really off the new record?
No, just like one off.
Lucy's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And one's about. Oddly enough, I said I'd never write about dead people again. One of them is just a list of the dead people that I know. I was like, well, let me try to write a completely unemotional list of the people that I know that have died. And then it turns into a pretty emotional song about Gus, who passed away. But I'm super proud of that. And I'll be dropping that, whenever the stars align. It's ready to go. Sorry, I just made the end to this real awkward. You were landing this real perfect. And then I was like, hey, you see that cloud over there? Cloud looks like a bird or whatever.
Oh man. Well, no, thank you so much, man. This has been a really entertaining conversation, and I think people really will learn something about like how you make your music, and because I think a lot of this was pretty enlightening, especially when it came to how you approach making some of this music, because it's not what I expected. I thought some of it was a bit more calculated than others, and then others I thought were less calculated, but actually were much more thought through. So it's interesting. Really appreciate the time.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, for real. It's been a blast on my end as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care and have a good rest of the weekend.
I will. You do the same, my dude.
Peace. So there we have it. Another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some new perspectives and insights into what the greatest art form known to man in hip-hop music has to offer. If you want to support the show in the most meaningful way possible, it would be my absolute honor to have you as a patron in the new Rap Music Plug podcast Patreon. Through this Patreon, you will be getting exclusive content such as bonus episodes, exclusive album recommendations, exclusive playlists, early access to episodes, and more. And above all, though, you will be able to support the show directly in a way that will not only justify the crazy amount of time I spend on this show already, but allow me to cover some of the expenses related to supporting all of these great artists that we cover on the show through the website, and will allow us to sustain and build on this amazing growth that the RMPP has experienced recently. Big shout out to Dano of Free Music Empire, Levy, Mahima, Jeff, Mitch, Dash Lewis, Pancake Cleaner, Trey, Noah, Justin, Brandon, Joe, Gavin, Matt, Fatman Tomb, and Khalid for your generous support through the Patreon. I really appreciate it. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it.